So I want to take you back to the first game of the season, or before the first game. The club made a number of signings in the summer, but it wasn't a sort of root and branch reset, was it? Only one of the players who started on the opening day of the season wasn't here last season in Emma.
Yeah.
What gave you the confidence that that group of players would be able to push on from last season?
We've always known that we've set the foundations really well here in terms of the development programme that the players have been on right the way from starting. And as the season went on, like with any new team, there's always players who fall by the wayside, who decide they want to leave, who we speak to and kind of we explain the project's not for them, and that's fine. And we always trusted the process. When I started and I had a meeting with Frank and Mark, the whole discussion was all about how do we progress the club in the long term, and the plan was always create the team, sustain the team in the second year, push for promotion in the third year. And obviously we're a bit ahead of schedule, but having that framework allowed us to bring in players in the first year who we knew would carry through, and the younger players we brought in, from the moment I started coaching them, I knew that they would be able to come through, and that allowed us in the second year to look at just sprinkling signings in, and the players who came in, there weren't many of them, but the ones who did pulled the standards up as well, and that helped then ricochet across the entire club. And like I said, that first performance was against Chester United Reserves was a kind of a perfect balance of old meets new, and we did a lot of work in pre-season as well, because obviously when you first start a team you're working out who players are, you've got different people coming at different sessions, whereas pre-season last year, or the start of this season as it is, it was much more structured than what we wanted to be. We started stamping down identity, stamping down philosophy, and then that's carried through right the way through the season. And
what were the overall ambitions going into this season? Did it change at the start of the campaign, or after we had that excellent start of the season?
Yeah, we spoke at the start with the players, and the players, we set targets, we set individual long-term, medium-term targets, but from our point of view it was just to sustain what we were at and push ourselves. So obviously last year it was kind of avoided relegation with a couple of games to spare. This year it was like, okay, let's push that, let's look to be mid to high table, and then as the season went on that slowly shifted to, oh wait, we're in a race here, let's push for obviously promotion, push for the league for a long time. But then once we lost out the league, we fell into a good position where the hard work we put in before meant we'd already secured second place, and then wait to find out what the situation is going forward.
And after the start of the season, had some really difficult tests away from home. We didn't play a single home game until November. Do you think it helps getting a lot of the more sort of difficult away games out of the way as early as possible, sort of Leam Rangers and Horden, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we played Amazons, Leam and Horden all very close to each other, like September, October, and it was a challenge, and that was where we start to see the character of the team, which obviously pre-season you don't really see, especially with the new players coming in. Like, that's where we saw them standards getting pulled up, and we were missing Emma and Becca, like the two of the new signings, for most of October, and that was when we had them games. And to be able to kind of batten down the hatches and grind out results in that period. Obviously we were behind against Leam Rangers twice, we were up against it at Horden, and Amazons obviously we dropped points second game of the season, but each game it showed that we could grind out results when we needed to, and it reassured us going forward that this could be a good season.
And you talk about the character, that the whole United game, I'm sure, is a day that we'll all remember for some time. It started in probably the most dramatic possible fashion. At that point, did you foresee us getting a result at all, and with seemingly everything stacked against us, and how did the players achieve that?
No, it's probably one of the biggest wins of kind of the club's history, really, because like you say, everything was against us. It wasn't just one thing, it was the weather, the players' availability was already low. Just like not through any fault of the players, just the way the fixtures fell. We got there, and obviously the kind of fiasco with players not being able to play because referee with jewellery and stuff like that, and it couldn't have been more pitted and a very physical and experienced team playing against. But the character of the team, they just pulled the socks up, and with the 12 players, 13 players we had, it was a case of, right, we're going to win this game. And we withstood a lot of pressure, and obviously if you watch back the highlights you can see the emotion kind of coursing through the veins when we scored, and could have scored another. Like, it was huge, and that was the moment when I think everyone realised we're on something a bit special here. Like, this isn't just another kind of football club people are part of. That's when I saw the ladies on, like, as a club, as a team, not just a set of players, and from there we just flew for it.
And we have to talk about the next round as well, the Warrington game in the FA Cup. I think your words to Leo and I after the game was that you're going to try not to cry during the post-match interview. Did that sort of sum up the afternoon? What was it like for you as a manager that day?
Yeah, I promised myself I wouldn't cry that day. It's probably it is the proudest moment of my coaching career, because again although we were at home, it was still, the weather was poor. We're playing against a really professional outfit in terms of the way they set up, the way they run, competitive team. Obviously, we're in uncharted waters with players, very young squad we had that day playing, and it was something else. And again, it was just momentum, everything going well. We've had points this season where luck hasn't gone for us at all, but that one it did, and it all just clicked into place. And that final whistle, it was genuinely a bit of a magic moment. It was just like, wow, like little Consett is starting to make a bit of a footprint.
And in the next round, we welcome Stockport County to Bellevue, also 3 divisions above us. It was always going to be a really tough challenge. We went 4-0 down inside the first half. Were you fearing the worst at that point? In a way, did it show the immense character of the team not to let heads drop after that?
I wouldn't say it was a case of fearing the worst. It was, we were playing against a team who was so much more experienced, so much more better resourced. They had everything we aim to be. They've got. But when you look at the game itself, yeah, 4-0 down at half time, but if you look at chances we've had, it could have been 4-4. Like we hit the bar, we hit the post, or we had 2 1-on-1s where on another day or later on in the season when we got our strikers were absolutely on fire, we score them. And the coach in the second half to take it out and be like, right, look, we're not bottling this. We're not gonna just hide and 450, 500 people who come down to watch it. We're going to give them something to cheer about, and I'd say we achieved that, definitely. And pushing forward, it would just give us that lesson of, we want this all the time. We want this to be the normal, not the result obviously, but the vibe, the bounce that day, and I'd like to think we've carried that forward.
Yeah. And the week after, we played host to Sunderland for the first time, or Sunderland under 23, in what was immensely difficult conditions. At that point, did you foresee just how important the outcome of that game was going to be at the end of the season? Was it treated as that kind of game?
Yeah, from a coaching point of view, definitely. It was obviously because of our FA Cup run. It was, our league was quite early days compared to Sunderland. I think we were 3 or 4 games behind them at that point. But we knew that they'd be the front runners. I mean, they're a team with the resources that they've got unlimited training sessions. They've got access to gyms. They're playing at the Academy of Light. It's the best and brightest young players in the county. It's like the equivalent of Man City in the league. And we knew they'd be up there, so we approached the game of, we're going to make sure we give an account of ourselves, because at the point we were, like I say, we knew something good was brewing, but things like that, so you're 2 games away from it being a completely different story. And to come away from that after taking the lead and then 1-1 towards the end, it was a real learning curve for the girls, and it let us realise, look, we're mixing it with the big guns here a little bit.
And sort of following the new year, we were on the receiving end of one of the most sort of dramatic games you could ever imagine against Darlington in the County Cup. We responded really well against them 2 games later with a 5-0 win. How big was the difference in the performances between those 2 games?
Believe it or not, the performances were almost identical. Just in the 5-0, we defended what we should have defended, and we finished what we should have finished. And in the first game could have been the same, and the second game could have also been 3 or 4-3. But we made sure we learned the lessons that we did, and then going forward from that, it was a case of a little bit of revenge. We said at the start, like, look, they'd turn up here, and we could have obviously lost on penalties, and it was gutting. But the second time, I'm going to make sure we show them that it's not an easy place to come up here. We don't give away goals anymore. And yeah, 5-0 was really satisfying, and that was probably the best 2 contrasting games you look at in terms of from a coach's point of view, of players taking it on board, we work on stuff specific, and then out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, the opposite, like with all that work, it comes good.
Yeah. And following the win over the Amazons at the start of February, we then went over a month without playing a single game. A couple of teams pulled out with short notice in that time. Can you sort of sum up the frustration with regards to the fact that we weren't able to get any real momentum going in that period in terms of results?
Yeah, it was hugely frustrating. Like you say, the teams dropping out killed any momentum we had. Obviously, we come back from 5-0, 4-0, and then bang, gone, no games for a month. And you could definitely see that in the Burnley game, the 2-2, where first half, like, it was so clear we hadn't played for ages. We had players cramping up, we'd lost a bit of cohesion. Obviously, like, it generally does affect things, and like I say, it's just frustrating that both games came the way they did, of teams dropping down the end of the day, so we couldn't reorganise anything. But that is what it is. We can't do anything with it, and after the Birtley game, like say, well, after the first half of the Birtley game, we bounced back and again went on another good run.
And at the end of that run, the Sunderland under 23 game was probably the most important to the season. It ended up being, also again, probably the most painful of the campaign. What do you think sort of went wrong this afternoon? Is it really that easy to dissect?
I've done plenty of dissection of it, yeah, for sure. In the heat of the moment, it was just we weren't good enough. Like it's just a case of that. Sometimes as a coach, as a team, you've got to look at it and think, fair play. On analysis, looking at the game, breaking it down, we were really unlucky. Like individual errors, kind of all over the pitch. Luck not dropping on when it could have been. I mean, realistically, like the start of kind of 60 minutes, 65 minutes, we could be 4-3. Like we have a goal disallowed, we have a penalty shout turned down, and 4-3, I'd back us to go on and win it because we're on top, and then they hit us with a sucker punch. But the lessons the ladies took from that are the most important, because sometimes when you're coming up and you're coming up through the systems, you're coming up through the ability-wise, you start to be a high-performing team. You've got to experience that, and it's kind of, I know a lot of the girls are Newcastle fans, and obviously with the Carabao Cup final, sometimes you need to lose the big games to then win them next time, because you've felt what it feels like, and you're not going in with the trepidation of, oh, what's this feeling? I'm really nervous. What do I do with all this? Like, you've been there, you're right. Yeah, we got battered, but we don't let that happen next time. We learn from it, and like I say, the response from the girls from that was class.
Yeah, and so moving on to next season, obviously we still don't know what we are in terms of the division for next season, but how confident are you that this squad can push on again no matter what league we are in and make a success of it?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the league, the points difference between us and teams below, if we stay in the league, hopefully we'll be the same again. Like, obviously we've got Tracos retired, Titch's retired, but all in all we're going to have a very similar squad without any additions. So when we start bringing additions in, it's only going to strengthen us a little bit, and with the launch of the reserves to kind of scaffold and build foundations for that as well. We would hope for a strong season. If we do get promotion, then it'll be a case of looking at sustaining it. And again, it'll be back to square one. We stay in that league, we maintain ourselves, and then we build to go forward. But obviously we've got plans in motion, we've got things that we're looking at kind of as a whole club, and we've just got to wait and see where we end up now. But we've kind of got plan A, B and C just for the different outcomes, and we've just got to wait and see what the FA come out with.
Yeah, and finally overall, just what's your favourite moment of the season if you had to pick one?
Probably holding back them tears at Warrington, against Warrington up here, and like I say, it was a back against the wall, and we put so much effort and time and emotion into that game and the build up to it, and having a Bellevue where last season we were kind of getting like 10-20 people coming and watching, to have 450 people come to that game, and it was genuinely bouncing, seeing the girls coming through, and then seeing that the buzz that's brought forward, where now we've got girls teams popping up left, right and centre. We've got, like, still back in the season every game had at least 100 people coming to it, and that doesn't sound a lot when you compare it to men's games, but from where we were, it's exponential growth. And the exciting bit is, and what gets me going in the morning coming playing up here and coaching up here, is the sky's the limit here. And that's very clearly what the kind of Frank and Mark think of above, and that's why I got involved in the project. And like I say, we're a year ahead of schedule effectively, so it's just a case of put the work in, put the hard hours in, and then let's reap the rewards this time next year hopefully.
Thank you.
Well, cheers.